Hotep, beloveds, welcome to Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Service. And once again, I am delighted to have this opportunity to come before you and to share in this glorious work of steeping ourselves in our primal, ancient African Kemetic wisdom. This is where we immerse ourselves in our African wisdom and find its application in so-called modern daily living. As many of us know, this so-called modern is right now oftentimes barbaric. So we are learning how to work through, especially today as we this service is entitled the Kemetic Neteru Coping Tools, both internal and external. And using Simone Biles as an example today, we will look at these Kemetic coping tools in relationship to our beloved sister, Simone Biles, and see what applications are made of this wisdom to the circumstances we see her going through and relate these to ourselves. So I want to just welcome everyone. Let me just say good morning to everyone. Welcome. We're so delighted to see you this morning. All right, so in moving forward now, and there's a couple of things in the chat. Someone says, Hotep, greetings from Salim. Okay, great. All right. All right, so as we go along, please do put questions in the Q&A. Today we'll be taking questions. All right, so here we begin. Let's see. So as each week we have been immersing ourselves in this primal wisdom in the process of building the lighted temple. And that is so we are also likewise learning to use these tools so that we see the way to, as in the case of Simone Biles or in our own lives, to work through pressure, stress, anxiety, trauma, depression, anything, everything that would fetter the soul in its journey, because we are about fulfilling our soul work and purpose, our life purpose, our reason and meaning for being, why we have incarnated, and especially in these troubled times, which we've been understanding the time that we have incarnated in. I also, as we begin, want to just give a shout out to King Mende, who is a member and who is on the is in the here today president of the service, that we are going to be giving highlights of today's service on the Ancestral Knowledge platform, which this magnificent brother is a creator of. And again, there are it's in excess of 128,000 and growing. So it's an amazing concourse of primal wisdom and information that everyone is invited to partake of. And so afterwards, after this service, he and I will go and give 15 minutes of highlights to live on that Ancestral Knowledge platform. So please, you may tune in there. But what we are putting forward is that you want to come to the main event. You want to come to the main game or sports event. Those who are going to get the highlights are just going to get a flavor of what is actually taking place. You're getting the full potent dosage. So we commend you that you've come and you're here at this time in this Building the Lighted Temple service. And it is our hope that the gates will open wide in the Ancestral Knowledge platform enabling people to come in and partake of this work. The gate won't open for everyone because one has to be ready. It is about a vibration, but we understand what got you here today, and we want others of like mind to join us as well. So we are again honoring our sister Simone Biles today and all her magnificent work, and seeing the application of this ancient wisdom in modern daily living to support our efforts and her efforts. She says, she's quoted here as saying, for anyone saying I quit, she says, I didn't quit. And Biles writes this on her Instagram story on Friday. She says, my mind and body are simply not in sync. And she says, I don't think you realize how dangerous this is on a hard competition surface. So what does it mean when the mind and body aren't in sync? Well, this is the work of building the lighted temple, that we are coming in sync and staying in sync, and seeing the way to manage stress, pressure, anxiety, depression, because we are all called to learn practices of self-soothing. How do we self-soothe? We have to learn how to soothe ourselves. Even infants, newborns, you comfort them, you hold them, and you soothe them. And simultaneous with your efforts, they're developing their self-soothing techniques on their own. They'll rock back and forth, they'll suck their thumb, they'll play with the end of their blanket. And so we're all called to learn how to self-soothe. And out of that soothing ourselves, we're learning how to compose, how to balance, how to find equanimity and peace, how to be established in Hotep, which is satisfaction and peace, and how to find balance. We're always having to calibrate and recalibrate, and how we are learning to listen to that inner voice, which can be muted and keep us away from the infinite source of how and supply of how to be at peace and at ease. And so, Simone tells us that she is in therapy, and she's putting her mental health first, that she wasn't feeling confident or trusting herself, especially around and making the decision not to go forward. And she says, I thought it would be better to take a back seat, work on mindfulness. So she's already talking about her practices, and we're going to get into what is that about, because all of us are called to develop those practices, those external practices, as well as how well we are tapping into those inner or internal tools, so that we build that toolkit of external tools that are in resonance and supportive of one another. So she says, I thought it'd be better to take a back seat and work on mindfulness and not take the risk of, as she says, screwing things up, not wanting to risk the medal for the team, and at the same time not wanting to injure herself. So let's see what examples our beloved Simone can bring forth today. So in this building the lighted temple with the Kemetic technology for remaking ourselves as being of light. So we have been immersed. I'm going to show, instead of bringing up the PowerPoint, I'm just going to show quick images. So family, we have been immersing in these texts that I have authored, as well as the Kemetic texts of our African ancestors who've given us this wisdom. We have been immersing ourselves in KaAbBa, building the lighted temple with the metaphysical keys to the tree of life. And then MerKaBa, the Great Pyramid, is the tree of life, the Kemetic technology for remaking ourselves as beings of light. So we have been seeing the way to make the dimensional shift from the linear tree of life, which is part of our development, but moving into the MerKaBa energy body of life. So we move from linear tree of life in linear consciousness into spherical or spherical consciousness, because we are spherical beings. We are luminous beings of light. And so we want to make that dimensional shift. And just quickly, as we have done before, what happens when we make that shift? We are, if we can just hold this up, don't worry if you can't see these, I'll put them in the video, I'll attach them. And they're all in the books that I have authored. But what is the MerKaBa energy body of light? It is when we make that shift into that spherical consciousness, that first eye activation, that vehicle of rebirth, transformation, resurrection, ascension, transport, empowerment, and enlightenment, initiation, and service. So, but in order to begin to understand developmentally where we are today in acquiring these tools, we're going to look at the linear tree of life. And we know our overarching story in navigating this journey, in this spiritual journey of unfolding consciousness. We are always in rapport with that primary Neteru, or the primary trinity that is within us of Osir, Oset, and Haru. And we'll talk about the other Neteru that are also the tools, the inner tools that we are using. And we're all familiar at this point with the story of Osir, Oset, and Haru. I won't go over it again, but just the short of it is that as Haru, just like many are familiar with the story of Lion King, which is derivative from our story of how as Haru, we are in this battle with this jealous brother, Set, who has slayed our father Osir. And that becomes the keynote of in the undertone and overtone of our story, because as Haru, our challenge is to be in this constitution, which is both human and divine, spirit and matter, betwixt and between, and trying to always do the good and perfect thing and make the right choice. And it's not easy. It's quite an experiment we're out here on. So, and family, do remember to put the questions in the Q&A if you should have them. But in this building the lighted temple, we want to first quickly understand that in this temple building, we start with the simple diagram of a house, because that's where we begin. And to understand that we are the carpenter. As Haru, we are the carpenter in building this house. And so we need tools. And those tools are both internal, because they are the Neteru tools, and they are external, which I will talk about in a moment. What are those external tools that we choose to use? But back to the project at hand, we are working to build that lighted temple so that in our temple building, we're starting on the first floor with the physical body. Then the second floor, the emotional body, the third floor, the mental body. And, certainly this is what Simone Biles is speaking to when she says she didn't feel that mind-body connection, so we're starting here. Now there is also higher mind that we are going to reference too, but right now we have to have a mind-body connection on a daily basis to navigate life and to perform well. All right. So in our temple building, and this is just the character, building the temple, we're all charged to do that. But family, we've talked about how we don't just want a structure, we want it to be lighted. So we have to unpack higher levels of ourselves, which means, as our African ancestors have taught us, these 3 levels represent only 3 of 7 planes of consciousness or awareness. So we have to unpack ourselves on those other levels and get the tools. See, when we're on these, in this level here, we only have access to some of the tools. We have to have access to all of those tools, and we get glimmers of those higher tools. And then we begin to really grasp them and utilize them in more effective and efficient ways. And so here, this is just the diagram of how we are unpacking ourselves in these 7 planes of consciousness that our African ancestors teach us about. So we've been going over this in our work, and all of this is in the book. It's in the courses that I teach. So we'll drill down more and more as time goes on. But I want us to start with this diagram today, and to just have us look at the internal Neteru tools. And I'm just going to name them. By each of them is the briefest of descriptions. In the book is a longer description. But we begin with, we certainly have the divine trinity within which we've talked about, which is Osir, and then Haru, and then Aset. So we have that. What are those tools? We have to understand what each of those is empowering us to do with those divine qualities, because the Neteru are qualities of divinity that are within us. So we have Osir, and then we have Chahudi, Sakur, Ma'at, Herakuti, Haru, Heteru, Sebek, Nit, and Kemenu, Set, and Geb. All right, so these are the Neteru of the MerKaBa energy body of life, because remember, in the tree of life, these Neteru were not revealed until you have the MerKaBa formation, so that they may be revealed. Now, so let's go here now. So now we see the Kemetic Neteru qualities of strength. These are qualities of strength that we can use. And these are our internal tools. But we have these external tools as well that we install in our toolkit. And so, and we look at how vibrationally attuned we are, or those external tools are, to if this is the source within these tools, the Neteru, then we look at the external tools we use as a resource. And the resource must align with the source. Let me say that again, family. These are the internal tools. The Neteru are our internal tools, qualities of divinity that we use in our work in the world. And along with that, we develop these external tools in our toolkit, and the external tools must have resonance with the internal tools, that it is the internal that should inform the correctness of the external tools that we're using. They are there is the source. This is the eternal source, and these tools are a resource that we use, and one must support the other. So let's look at how this works. This will all become clearer in a moment as we go along. So as we're journeying through life, as we're in this spiritual journey of unfolding consciousness and out here experiencing all these impacts along the way, and doing our day-to-day. What is it that we're doing our day-to-day? Day-to-day, the things that can create a stress are just having to, relationships can cause a stress, having to be in the workaday, our careers, our raising families, finances, health, all of these things, all the things that we aspire for and to do, and all the things that confront us on a day-to-day basis are running along this path here. And we see these things as a kind of either a stress, sometimes it can be something that we're very eager to have in our life. Sometimes these things can be traumatic. They can cause loss or anxiety or a sense of depression. And so these things, they typically call just stress or pressure, or just the pressure of life. And then what is stress or pressure? Stress and pressure are anything that causes us to have to adapt. Every day we have to adapt. And so stress can be of two types. Stress can be what is called, or that pressure can be good stress. Like, you know, there have been many Olympics where Simone has, could only imagine, felt that as good stress. She's performing, she's winning medals. She still has to adjust and adapt to everything, her environment, but that's called good stress or eustress. And that would be more desirable. At the same time, there is what's called distress, which means the same thing. We have to adapt constantly to change, but it is an unfavorable feeling. It's an unfavorable stress. For example, the stress of driving while black, where you're looking in your rear view mirror for the blue light, or living in an environment where there's lots of noise and you can't do anything about it. Being in an environment where there's gunshots, being in an environment where there's loud music, or where you're in a work environment where they have the air conditioning on. You know, we're a sun people, so if we can't do anything about sitting in a cold office all day, this is distress, something that causes us to continually adapt to that environment. So as we are going along, we are sitting in traffic that we just have to sit through for an hour. We're commuting, we have to pick up kids, we have financial issues, we have health issues, we have losses, we have graduations and weddings, celebrate, you know, things that are eustress, good stress, things that, but we are still going along having to make these adaptations. And so what does this look like? Well, what we do when we have a stress is, whether good or you know, not, if you were called to, if you were on the East Coast and you were offered a position on the West Coast and you had to pick up and move your family in 2 weeks to accept this position, and they were paying you 6 figures, and you had a beautiful windowed sky view, it would still be stress because you have to undergo all of the change and adaptation. So stress of life causes us to have to develop this toolkit over here, this external toolkit. And now, as you journey along, sometimes those stressors get stacked up. You know, you going along and day to day, but sometimes as you're going along, the stressors get stacked up. You can have a financial issue and a medical issue and a legal issue and a marital issue all at the same time. So stress happens, or pressure happens, or life happens. And then when that happens, what we do is we dip into our toolkit. And so when we feel that stress or pressure, and we dip into our toolkit and need to self-soothe, we're looking for something that we've installed for that purpose. Because when we move past our little blanket or our thumb, you know, as we get older, we got to put stuff in there. And so when we have a stress, for example, when we dip it there, if we smoke, we'll smoke. Or if we, let's say, for example, there's a life stressor over here of not the Olympics like for Simone, but let's say your workplace requires you to have an inventory or an audit, so which is a very stressful time for everybody in your company. So so in dipping in your toolkit, if you smoke, you would dip in there and you would smoke. And if you had this more pressure at the time of this inventory, you might smoke more. Likewise, if you have this stress and you dip in your toolkit, you may go exercise, or you might do yoga. So you can see, family, that in this toolkit, there are 2 types of tools. One that is life negating, which is smoking, and the other that is life promoting, which is yoga or meditation or exercising. All right. Now, but the idea, family, is that these are running neck and neck. Life presents a stressor, you dip in your toolkit, and you're able to cope. Life goes on and presents stressors, you dip into your toolkit, and you're able to cope. But sometime in life, what happens is, and you hope that these are running neck and neck, but sometimes what happens is the life stressors begin to run ahead of one's ability to cope, whatever they have installed in their toolkit. And that is the definition of a crisis. That's the point where you can feel that imbalance. Sometimes it's a tremendous imbalance, and one where some serious intervention is needed. Sometimes one can quickly recalibrate, and but we don't want the crisis, the life events to run ahead of the ability to cope. Now, so let's go back to the example. I'm just going to check a moment and see if there's any questions. Let's go back to the example of, okay, we're doing good. Okay. Let's see, and we're up to, looks like 19. That's great. All right, some folks I didn't get a chance to say good morning to. Hotep, everyone, great to see you here. All right, so all right, so let's go back to the example of this this inventory that causes this tremendous stress. So as I said, if one drinks or smokes, they would drink or smoke more, because what we do under this pressure or stress is we begin to overlean on what's ever in this external set of tools. So if one drinks, they will drink more. If they work out, they'll be hitting the gym every time they get off of work, maybe on their lunch, to just get that stress or pressure off. And so they're performing to get to the other side using their external tools. Now, why do I say, and now begin to talk about the importance of upgrading these tools so that there are, you have weeded out, and when I say weed, no pun intended, but you've weeded out those tools that are life negating versus life promoting. Why is that important in that calibration? I'm going to answer that in a moment, because we are going to talk about the internal tools in a moment. But why is this important to upgrade? And this because it's from the internal tools that you are attuning and raising your vibration. So you'll want to have your external tools more in line with, you're going to make successive approximations to getting your external tools more in line with the vibration that your internal tools are calling forth from you. All right. Because at the end of the day, you want there to be less and less difference between that which is external and that which is internal. But right now, so back to the external. So why is it important that you upgrade and weed out those tools that are life negating? Because at the end of the day here, the one who used chain smoked cigarettes to get through the inventory, and the one who went to the gym, multiple times, they both got through the inventory at work, and it's like, whew, and we're on the other side of that. But the test is the tools in your external toolkit, those that are life promoting, render you more fit, because this is about building a lighted temple, a fit instrument. They render you more fit the next time there is an inventory at work. And the life negating tools render you less fit, because now you've got, nicotine scouring in the lungs, and so forth and so on. All right. I hope everybody's holding on to what's been said so far. So, so now the issue is like, what's in your toolkit? What's in your toolkit? And like that commercial that says, what's in your wallet? So when you begin to look in there, you begin to see what's in there. Some people have a poverty of tools. They've got one thing in there. Maybe the one thing they have in there is one life negating tool, or one maybe there's one life negating tool that they're relying on. So the idea is to begin to examine, family, what's in that toolkit, and begin to do this upgrading and recalibration and weeding out those tools that you've been utilizing, that you lean on and you over lean on in times of stress and crisis and pressure and anxiety and so forth, and need to self-soothe and find balance, that you've been leaning on them. The idea is to upgrade, just like we upgrade. Now, this is the Kemetic technology for remaking ourselves as beings of light. Just as we upgrade our computer, our phone, our upgrade our automobiles, we want to upgrade our toolkit, our external toolkit, as well as see the way to put even more life enhancing tools in it. Meditating on your own is great. Maybe what gets added is going to a retreat and meditating and so on. But now so let's make a shift and now begin to look at the Neteru as the internal tools. And now in speaking in regard to Simone Biles, she informs us that she was leaning on her external tools. She mentions that she was going to do some more mindfulness practice. She was going to take some time off, just taking time away from this grunt and grind of things can restore balance. And she was also going to meet with the sports psychologist, so somebody who can help talk and problem solve and work things through. But the thing I want to have us to note, family, about Simone is that Simone did a very important thing in rebalancing, no pun intended, and recalibrating, because what Simone did is, you see, as we journey along and we have this in our toolkit and then these stressors, we can focus on upgrading the toolkit of external tools we use to rebalance. We can install new life promoting tools and uninstall tools that are life negating. That's one option, and it's a great option. We have to be doing that simultaneously. But at the same time, we can also look like over here at the stressors. Maybe as we look at these stressors, maybe what we need to do instead, or in addition, is we need to maybe go to a financial planner and see how to reduce that financial stress or pressure. Maybe we need to, maybe the relationship that we've been in isn't working and we just need to end that relationship. Maybe we see over here, we can't always quit our job or shorten our commute if that's what's got us so stressed. But we can look at maybe making some arrangement where we lighten the stresses on this side. And so Simone leaned on some things she had over here in her toolkit. But what she also did, and this is when we have to start to look at how much of Haru is she, of her Haru is she standing in. She said, I'm going to withdraw from the events. And that is a very powerful and potent demonstration. It's certainly a way to rebalance, and even if one is using their tools, but she took the stressor off of her path. She just took the stressor. And I want to commend her in what that took. And as I glimpse Simone, of course, we need to know more about her. If I were her therapist, you know, I would ask certain questions. But, and she's young, she's only 24. So I would wonder about her ability to continually stand in her Haru. But when we're in our Haru, as we talked about family, few services back, we are above the diaphragm. We are in the heart. We are standing in the heart, the seat of conscience and growing soul consciousness. And we are standing in our presidency, our executive office, our place of where we're able to survey the above and the below, the spirit above and the matter that we're in, and we are able to make choice, and then we're able to aspire to be as Osir, our Father, in the fullness of the one true self. And in the MerKaBa, it's not just the father, it's the father mother in union. And we see that Osir, that at that point is able to come to the apex of the triangle. So when we are really in that Haru in the MerKaBa, the father and mother are in embrace here, and it is Haru that is coming to the apex. So let's go back to Simone family. I don't know if let me see if I have questions here. Let me just check. I'm gonna go back to Simone. Oh, okay. So would and put my glasses on. All right, so there's 19 of us here and we're in listening mode. Okay, all right, that's wonderful. Okay, so let me just go back here. All right, so we see Simone standing in her Haru, where she is in her own agency. We have to stand in our Haru in order to really govern, to really be in our power. Because when we are just operating below the diaphragm in our physical, emotional, and mental body, because it's more than just that mind, that body and lower mind coordination, it's getting in touch with the rest of us, unpacking the rest of who we are. And so when we finally stand in our Haru above the diaphragm, we are beginning to command. We are in harnessing the will. And we are in that lioness, that Leo energy of leadership, of taking charge. And we see Simone at this young age taking charge and saying no. She's saying, per her assessment, she wanted to take a step back, and she didn't let others dictate what would happen next, risking, as she said, the metals, risking her safety. And this is the place of standing that we want to arrive in, and then exceed more that place of standing, where we can say, you know, oftentimes because we are tapping into our higher mind, which is Tahuti, we're tapping into Heteru, which is understanding the widening, ever greater widening of who we are, of wholeness, and And it is in that capacity that I see Simone having the power and asserting her own authority to say, to assert her own destiny, and to not be used by this tremendous, using her own agency, her own inner agency, versus this outer agency that would control, be very concerned about the loss of money, the loss of influence, the loss of power, the loss of standing. When we are in our Haru, we are able to, oftentimes folks, when they're in the stress of the workaday, they think that they have to acquire something in order to feel better and self-soothe. Well, if I only get that raise, then I'll feel better. No. Oftentimes we must likewise look at, what do we need to let go of? What do we need to release? What needs to be released in order to restore balance and equilibrium? And so I see Simone having made that release in that moment in order to restore her sense of balance. And I would see her as, I can't say from where I sit and not knowing a lot of her backstory, if she's always in that Haru, but she was clearly in that stance. No matter what it took, she was asserting her own agency and her will. She was harnessing the will to say what her stand was. And, and in this instance, family, we can even make a comparison of her with Colin Kaepernick, because, he under, I can only imagine the pressures and the mourning and the agony and grief of seeing what was happening to his fellow Black brothers and sisters, needing to take a stand. And sometimes that stand is stepping away from the thing that lures the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, that keeps it, and you're on someone else's program. Because this is where in our Constitution, if this is the temple, the personality, the physical, the emotional, the mental, and this is where we begin to be in our Haru. This is like someone just inserting that program and using our apparatus, this lower apparatus, our physical body, our emotional body, and our mental body. And we're not on our soul work and program. We're not aligning with what it is that we are here to do. And it isn't until we stand in our Haru that we are more fully on our way in being more fully empowered. Because as I've talked about, family, so much of humanity is polarized below the diaphragm, where there's nobody in the office. You think about the presidency. We'll talk about Obama. I don't want to talk about any presidency after that. This is our office of presidency or presence, where we are presenting, where we are present. And it isn't until we are here that we are in our own agency and harnessing the will. And so for many, a lot of humanity, there's nobody home. There's nobody in the office. You go to the window and there's nobody there. Other people are pulling the strings, and and directing the course. And so the Kemetic technology for remaking ourselves as beings of light is directing our own course. Now, just some other points here. So she stood firmly in her internal Neteru tool of Heru, her own agency, like Colin Kaepernick. And when you stand in your Heru, and when you are using your internal Neteru tools, you just, a kind of peace comes over you that everything's going to work out all right, that things are just going to work out all right, because you have done the assessment, and you are and you're using the wisdom of the body. She was using the wisdom of what was happening in her body, and what was happening emotionally, and what was happening mentally, and she knew there was a disconnect, and she knew she had to take a decisive action. Heru is decisive at whatever cost, at whatever consequence. You just, hey, Colin says, hey, if I die, I die. If you fire me, you fire me. That is Heru. So now let's look at some other things in regard to Simone. Now, we also know, I mean, what else, what are some other things may be operative for her in terms of her inner tools, particularly offset. And we know that Simone has to tap into this inner tool of offset to heal this sexual abuse trauma that she's experienced, for example. Now, and because we know in this tool of this inner tool of offset, that this is what is going to inform us of what is happening with the waters within, the emotional waters within, the luminous lighted waters within, and what what impacts have happened that have polluted those waters or distorted those waters. Because we know in offset is the mirror image, or the mirror reflecting of Asura, of the Father within. It is only in those waters which are within us, of the Mother, Divine Mother Offset, that the Father Asura is reflected in fullness, without truncation, without distortion, without diminishment. And so when things happen that disturb those waters, then that image can be distorted. There can be the polluting of those waters, and the fracturing of that image and likeness of the one true self within, which can affect your confidence, which can reflect your ability to see and behold the divine within. And it is the tumultuousness of those waters from trauma, from abuse, that when you have the tumultuousness of the waters, and the turbulence of them, this creates a fog in the mind. So turbulent waters creates a fog in the mental body. So you're trying to see through fog now and process through fog, because the emotions are all stirred up. So she's in the process, as we all are in the process, of recalibrating and upgrading our equipment. And she is a being of light, just as we are beings of light. And I certainly see her as, in her beautiful executions and the energy and the power. I mean, she is breaking laws of physics in her nobody is even in her class. She has to dumb down what it is she's capable of, because she isn't even likely surrounded by people who can even bring that out of her. But she is definitely moving in her MerKaBa energy body of light. And then she talks about is one thing that she was having the twisties, which is this relationship when she's in the air in her somersaulting, where she is losing her calibration in her space-time calculation. And she's, it can be for her, she's in this new relationship, this transformation that is happening within her, where she's gained mastery of that space within her MerKaBa energy body of light. And she's gaining, because she was actually going to try some new moves, which she didn't do. So it could be that this is her Sakura, her Neteru and her Sakura getting activated, where she's, able to move into, expand into a new vibrational ring that is being drawn with an even widening space-time continuum for her. That would be the work of Neteru to we move within one vibrational ring, and when we raise our vibration, we are expanding into wider and wider expanse in that space-time continuum. So and one thing that comes to mind as I think about that for her is those new airways, that new vibration, it is related to gymnastics, but like Michael Phelps, who has been telling his story as the swimmer who has sought mental health counseling for things that were coming up for him. This new airway, these twisties, this new relationship in the air may very well be her moving in a very dynamic way she already has into helping humanity with mental health, and some acrobatics or gymnastics in that are just going to be transforming and opening doors for the planet, because she's international. It's affecting this whole Olympics and sports world, and so it's a planetary event to help people really begin to talk about. And with humanity, because we as a human family, we've been more fixed upon what's happening physically and emotionally, hardly getting to what's happening to mentally. And it's because of a greater willingness for the as a planetary action to look at not only physical wellness, emotional wellness, but mental wellness. It's a sign for the planet to really begin to expand and heal on this level. So as a humanity, we can take a leap into Haru. We can more take a leap into Haru as coming more and more into our one true self. Also, for Simone, in not having, if it's about dealing with the abuse that she's experienced at the hands of that agency instead of working on her own internal agency, that would affect a decrease, that would affect trust in the people who were in her midst. And a decrease in trust can also trigger knowing that you got to come into your own authority and your own agency. You just you're just called to take that step. One other thing is that again, there can be a long list of things that can be talked about in regard to Simone and the external tools and the internal tools. One last mention is that not having an audience, and that now let's talk about this family. This is so important as initiates on the path, because having an audience and what happens with Hollywood and stardom, and that in and of itself can be an intoxicant that and that can begin to and if one needs that as a go-to and self-soother, you know, you could certainly think about Michael Jackson and just the spiral of the spiral of things that he couldn't kind of get himself out of, and the pull of that audience, and at a point, an audience can become an intoxicant to one's aura, because there's an imbalance. And so how much that threw her off would need to be examined by her, but it's just one other thing to consider. So as I wait to see if there's any questions, so what I'm going to do is just begin to summarize today a whole lot of, and I'm just so grateful today that we have 19 here. That's just beautiful. Thank you all for being here today. So to just summarize what we've talked about today, we have, as always, been talking about building the lighted temple, and then how do we build the lighted temple? Well, we learned today that we are using tools to do that building, just like if you had a masonry project, because we are in the process of fashioning our temple, we would need tools. And so we've talked today about 2 specific types of tools. One set of tools are the Neteru. They are the qualities of divinity that our African ancestors have taught us about. And so we have been looking at some of those Neteru and the particular qualities that would apply to this situation with Simone Biles. We could apply all of them if time allowed. But these Neteru tools are within us. And when we are indwelling the MerKaBa energy body of light, we are holding awareness that we are, that stellar substance is within us. All of that stellar substance, all the from out of the primal midst, out of the noon, we arise. That primal midst, the noon, is the source from which we come and to which we return. And we have access to all of that stellar substance. The constellation of of Aries is not outside us, it's within us. When we tap into our Herakuti, we are tapping into that Aries Martian energy. Mars is not outside of us. Mars is in us. We need to tap into it. And of course, that's some of what Simone got in touch with as well, is her Herakuti energy, her inner tool of Herakuti, which says that, and that Martian power, which is the right to assert herself. She got in touch with the right to assert herself, and as in her ability to fulfill the one true self that she is, while allowing others to do the same, because it has to be in balance with Ma'at, to assert the self while honoring the right of the other to assert the same one in the same true self. And so she got in touch with that Herakuti energy. But we are tapping into these Neteru tools. They are within us. And so the more we tap into the Neteru tools, someone says more about, let's see, from Lester. We should learn more about ourselves before, let's see, he says, we travel. For piercing lesson today. Okay, we need to learn, okay, we need to space travel, okay. We need to learn about ourselves. And Tim says, I wish I could hit the rewind button. Piercing lesson today. Many thanks. Sharon says, thank you, Neteri, for the enlightenment you have shared today. You are appreciated. I do appreciate these words, Nefer. Beautiful words, just beautiful words. And so tapping into, Alita says, let's see. Let me see. Oh, there's questions, let's see. Oh, Paula, love what you are saying. Beautiful, thank you, Paula. And Alita says, the Haru that you mentioned of Simone, Olympic medalist, how should we reframe the same mindset? Yes. We are all as Haru, we are all going for the gold, and the gold is a metaphor for that luminous lighted elixir or substance that we're making in the fiery purificatory chambers of our heart. And what are we transmuting? It's through our transmuting of all the pain, the suffering, the depression, the anxiety, the loss, the mourning, the traumas, all the impacts that have happened along the way, all the things that have happened in our day-to-day, daily living, the things that have happened. We are doing the work in our heart of making that healing balm. We are the alchemists in making that pure gold in the heart. And when we make that pure gold in the heart, then we are distributors of that healing balm to humanity. We are distributors of that. So the gold is happening we're all working on the goal. We're all working on the goal. And of course, there are those who would work for the physical, the material goal, and there's nothing wrong with having some gold, but our African ancestors are teaching us about gold of the heart, because they were master forensic experts, and they knew that every organ in the body told a story. And we are telling a story of what we are doing in this incarnation by the weighing of the heart and the lightness of our heart. And is it as light as the feather of Ma'at upon the scales of Ma'at? Is it as light as a feather? Have we done that work? And let's see. And then Andrea, excellent presentation of collectiveness. Let's see, she says, there are no coincidences. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Yes, family, I just thought it was so important today to just honor our beloved. She is just, science is going to take, physics is going to take a while to understand this young lady. And, you know, and we are taking the time today to understand what is required to be in her stand and try to speak to the inner qualities and the inner tools. And as she likewise was utilizing those outer tools to perform, and it may very well be that spirit is moving her to perform, not just in her amazing gymnastic feats, but the feat of opening the door wide to really move humanity to understand what it takes to break through to the, you know how you're in a bit, well, you're in a building. Let's just go back to the house, the image of the house. If I can just pull that up. Okay, so this is where we are. Not to be polarized here in the physical body, not to be polarized here in the emotional body. Imagine being polarized in the emotional body, and then this is a world that can get us to salivate and just be desiring of, and you know, we're just dragged around like a Pavlovian's dog. Not to be trapped in the mental body, these lower, the concrete mind and then the abstract mind, but to break through to the ceiling and go above and begin to really unpack ourselves more. And I see these events with Simone as offering even another opportunity to acknowledge this dimension of self, and to tap into not only the external tools that can support mental health and wellness, but tapping into the internal Neteru tools for our enhancement and enlightenment. So family, we are at that time. So I thank you all for coming today, and I leave you with the words, let's work on our external toolkit. Let's be aligning and tapping into and attuning our internal toolkit of the Neteru, and then let the Neteru inform what needs to be in there and how to keep upgrading it. Because that's what the internal Neteru will do. And so it is. Onk Uja Seneb. Look forward to seeing you next week, family. Peace and blessings to you.